So, Tommy Buns.
Yeah.
Tell me about the controversy surrounding your use of the R word in your last special.
Oh yeah, it was quite.
That was bizarre.
It was a lot, man. It was a lot.
It was also, what I found interesting about it was people were lying about the bit, and they were doing it in articles, and they were doing it in email campaigns. They were lying about the content of the bit.
Yeah.
They were changing what you were saying in the bit, and they had to be doing it on purpose. They definitely didn't listen to the bit.
Yeah, and I think it took me a while to figure out what really was happening was that someone's agenda or idea of what they want to accomplish is to highlight a campaign to eradicate saying a word, and then they had a channel to pursue by having a comedy bit that did it, that they could be like,
right,
let's go after it like this.
Yeah.
But they didn't go, I mean, you know, basically the funny thing is that like that joke was something that I worked back, where I did that bit backwards. In other words, I had the end piece of the bit was what I was doing by itself, which was a story about, I witnessed a fight in Philly of a white guy and a black guy in the park. And the white dude was, you know, screaming N-bombs, and it was nuts. So I would tell that story, and then I worked backwards into getting into the story. Because I always try to figure out, like, if something funny happens or I want to tell a story, it's always better to figure out why are you telling the story than just to be like, here's a story.
Right.
So I told the story of like the fight in the park. And then I worked into, like, I figured out right before it I would talk about racial slurs and how, you know, most racial slurs are not acceptable. And then I figured out though, like, unless they're like white racial slurs are totally acceptable. Like you can call people mix and krauts and frogs, Polacks, guinea wops, like this whole list of that. And then I worked before that of just the way into saying that was like, well, I should talk about words that you can't say that kind of changed over time, right? So it was just like one of those jokes that's like, oh, it's helping me get into the bit. You know, so I started the bit by saying, "You can't say retarded anymore." That's the first line of the entire bit, which ended up being like 8 or 10 minutes long. And then people would say to me, like, to start, like when I started getting mail about it, they were like, you know, you can't say retarded. And I go, that's the line that I say, like, that's the line in the joke.
But they didn't hear the bit. People just heard that you were doing a bit about the word retarded.
Once it blew up, like once it got to a huge amount of like when it was an organized, orchestrated campaign, you're right. There was people messaging me that would say, I heard you want to kill all children with Downs. And I'd be like, what? And where did you see that? Facebook somewhere said it, someone said it. Like those are the messages I started to get.
And how many people at the height of it signed this petition to get you like kicked off of Netflix?
Over 100,000. Yeah.
Wow.
But here's the thing. Here's what, I mean, I don't want to portray myself as a victim or anything, right? Like I did a bit, I can handle people not liking it or liking it. I mean, a lot of people messaged me that they were into it, and I just didn't share those because you don't want to be like, here's someone that said they like it, you know?
Right.
And people, even people with children and siblings and with Down syndrome messaged me, you know? I just didn't post those messages. But I don't know. I'm not the victim in this whole thing at all. I feel like I learned that when people are super upset about something, you have to let them just be upset and be outraged. If they want to be outraged, you know, that's your right. Of course, it's uncomfortable to me that you can't get out in front and be like, hey, you're misrepresenting it.
Right.
Because people, like even in the campaign language, it said like, we want this bit taken out of the joke. We want the trailer for the special removed. And I was like, why? And then I realized that the trailer has a joke that they're confusing with the joke where I say retarded. Like they think the two are related.
What's the one in the trailer?
The one in the trailer is I say like something's funny, disabilities are not funny, but some are. And it's a whole bit about obscure things like a foreign accent syndrome and
like when someone gets hit on the head and then they start speaking with a French accent.
So that was the setup to that bit.
Right.
And they were but they were saying, they were basically making it where that setup is about Downs or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, but they happen 40 minutes apart. One has nothing to do with the other. But by not watching it, by just watching the trailer, they're going, oh, see, this is like how he's making fun of us.
Right. Well, you shouldn't even have a point where you could say some disabilities are funny.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was told.
It's what it is like this new power that people have to complain. I mean, people have always complained, but they haven't had the instantaneous access to complaining.
Right. And then you can get, and here's the thing I learned about kind of like mob mentality too. It was like kind of fascinating to watch. I mean, I was in it, so it was different. Once I could step back, I realized that once you got sign a certain message out, you know, people would read the thing that says, this guy hates people with Downs. And I'm like, what? And that's not a hard thing to get behind.
Oh, yeah.
So then people would they would sign it. And I would also get messages that said things like, I didn't know evil like you existed in this world, you know, things like that. And I'd be like, what? And
you're ISIS.
I mean, like really crazy stuff, man. And I didn't engage nearly, you know, the amount of people that would contact me, but I did engage a few. I did like go back and forth with one guy. He was like, he was like, you fucking cocksucking piece of shit. I would stab you if I saw you on the street. And I go, what's this all about? That was my opening thing to him. And he was like, I heard you want to kill like everybody with Down syndrome. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? And then we had a back and forth about the bit. I'm like, you should go watch it, you know, just watch it and then get back to me. And then he writes me back. He's like, yeah. Sorry the way I spoke earlier. I didn't mean that. I was like, fucking seriously?
You're going to stab me.
Yeah.
If you saw me, you would have killed me. You'd be in jail forever. And they'd be like, defendant, please rise.
Yeah.
Why'd you stab Mrs. Segura? I didn't see the bit.
I didn't watch the bit.
Somebody told me he was saying terrible things about.
In people's defense who got upset, some people watched it and they're like, I saw it. And I think it's horrible. And I think, you know, I'm like, okay. You know?
Yeah, but there's some people that if you just say the word retarded, like that's it, it's over. You can't do that. It's like so many other words.
Yeah.
Like it's gotten to the point where you don't even say the word nigger. Mm-hmm. Like just saying it. It's like holy shit, what are you doing?
Yeah,
people will say the N word instead of it.
Right.
And you're not even calling someone it, but it's just acknowledging it that's a real word. It's like a forbidden thing.
Well, part of this campaign is to refer to it as the R word. Like, don't say it.
Right.
You know? You should never say it. I mean,
it's weird, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, some people were very, very upset about it, and you know, I get why someone could be upset about it. It's not like I go like, I don't even understand how you could be upset. I mean, the natural thing, I think, if you're a comic, is you want to walk someone through the joke. But what you realize later is like somebody who's advocating to stop saying a word doesn't care the details of the joke. I mean, the joke. Here's the other thing that sucks about reading. People would read transcripts. It's like transcripts have no intent, tone. You know, like if you just read people's, like I know we've talked about what you're closing on now, which will probably close out your special. Mm-hmm. If you just type that out and give it to someone, they'd be like, you are awful. Like you're a horrible man, you know? But it's a couple things. It's like, it's in the context of a comedy show.
Yes.
Where there's an unspoken agreement between performer and audience. It's the intent, like how did you intend this bit to go?
Right.
Tone. I mean, is it said satirically, ironically? Like that bit, what I'm doing in the bit is basically lamenting but accepting that words are changing.
Right.
Like that's the tone of it.
Yes.
The tone of it is I'm going like, can't say retarded anymore. That fucking sucks. But I'm also like, all right. You know what I mean? Like
you're saying okay. You give into it.
And I make an example. Like one thing that people got really upset about was like, I said at the end of this bit of the retarded part, I say like, you got to be like, that your idea has an extra 21st chromosome if you ask me, right? And then the next part, the very next line that they would cut out when people were sharing this thing is I go like, not the same. Meaning that the example is a purposely bad example.
Right.
The joke is that if you were to say 21st chromosome, it's absurd. It doesn't work. Like
Right.
you don't, it wouldn't make there. But people would attack me and go like, "You're telling people to start saying that idea." I'm like, no, I'm sharing that it's a bad idea.
I saw someone getting mad at someone calling someone stupid because they were saying that's ableist. Do you know what ableist is?
Ableist. Oh yeah, because you're of sound.
You're able.
Yeah, you're
Right.
able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you are mocking someone who's diminished mentally, oh, you fucking idiot. That's ableist.
Yeah. Sure.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
You're able-bodied. Their brain doesn't work so good. You're an ableist if you call them stupid.
I mean,
it's going to get to the point where if you give up certain words, I mean, if we keep going like this, it's going to get to the point where we're just going to have a very hard time communicating effectively.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I don't know. And here's the thing: it is an endless cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't have that next unacceptable word.
Right.
You know, like everybody knows. I think a lot of people know that as far as somebody who's is developmentally disabled, retarded was kind of the latest term that was once acceptable. It's clearly not now. I mean, that is kind of the point. But before that, you know, moron was a medical term.
Was it?
Yeah.
Mongoloid idiot was what they used to call Down syndrome children. That was like
100 years ago, right?
Yeah, it was on the birth certificate.
Right, but I'm saying, you know, people who are saying, you know, just to stop saying they're not wrong, you know, but there is also another word down the pipeline, right? There's something else is coming.
Yeah.
That's going to be a medical word or term, and then that'll be used to insult people. That's the way people use language. Like once we identify this is the word people use to label someone with a developmental disability, the slang will grow from that.
Yeah.
People will start using that.
Well, what's interesting to me is that when we're talking about words, you're not going to change the way people think. So words are supposed to convey intent.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be sounds that we all agree mean a certain thing. And the more depth, the more access to words you have, the more you can sort of flavor your conversation. So I understand what you're saying. Like if you're saying this guy, I kind of get it. But if you're like this fucking guy, I'm like, well, Tommy's really mad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that, and to take that out, it's like, I don't know. So sometimes you take those things out when you're like on a television show or something like that. But all television shows, because of that, all censored television shows only exist within a certain band.
Yes.
A certain frequency. They never get out of that. Like the Joey Diaz frequency is like, there's
It's
no
up
fucking
there.
roof.
Yeah.
There's no fence.
True.
This frequency that you get on like late night talk shows or a sitcom, this very narrow band, that there's no cunts in that band. There's no you motherfucker. There's all those things are not in there.
Which is what I feel like for me, when I'm watching something like that, part of my brain's always like, go find a motherfucker somewhere. You know, it's like you kind of want it. You know?
Especially now, we're so used to being free.
Yeah.
Especially us because of podcasts
and live stand-up.
Yeah. You know, and I was going to bring this up, like your show that you do with your wife, your mom's house. If anybody just wanted to go cherry pick things and write them down, write some of the things you guys joke around about where you're clearly joking.
Yeah.
But take it and write it down in quotes. And then Tom said to his wife,
oh,
yeah.
And by the way, 100,000 times worse than anything in live stand-up I've ever said is said on that podcast. I mean, it's not even comparable.
Exactly.
It's so much worse. The content, it's like we don't go into the show of like, let's be offensive, but we play in a no rules, like have fun environment.
Yeah.
You know, it's like free flowing, just say whatever. And that's the fun of the show.
Well, yeah. And it's also everybody knows you're joking around.
Yeah, yeah. The fan base is like 100% on board with like, this is, uncensored, just loose, fun, going for jokes.
What I also found too is that during this whole controversy after your special was released, you got bigger. It's like people by doing that campaign, and then people who did investigate, they go, actually, this guy's really fucking funny.
I mean, I used to, again, I never publicize these things because it's gross, to be like, check out this compliment or whatever, right? But like, I got so many messages from people who are like, I saw this thing on the news, because it was on a lot of local news that there's a controversial Netflix thing out. People would message me, I saw this thing, so I decided to check you out. New fan, just bought tickets to see you at blah, blah, blah. So I started to get a bunch of messages like that.
Oh, for sure, because you're going to get 30% of the people that aren't even going to read it, they're just going to call you a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But the other people are going to go, what is going on over here? And the next thing you know, they're going to investigate, and they're going to go, what? They're doing this guy dirty.
Yeah.
And then, boom,
I got a lot of support that I never... Like I said, I never made light of the fact that people were being supportive, but people were being very supportive.
Well, it just seems like there's different rules now for stand-up, and you got to really cover your ass. But in your case, you did cover your ass, and they disingenuously left that part out. Like, they deceptively left that out when they were writing down what you had said. They didn't put it in the context.
That's true. And then, part of you goes, man, like, I'm not trying to paint myself as a martyr, or you know what I mean?
Right.
And like, people who are going down this path of, they have family or friends with disabilities. It's like, I'm not going to, my whole thing was never to attack them.
Right.
So I'm not going to try to make it a battle that I have to win.
Of course.
It's like, so once I saw like kind of what I thought clearly was happening, I was like, just let people vent their frustration about, if it's about me or about what I said, just let it happen.
Yeah.
And because I don't hold it against them that they're upset about this issue.
Right.
And even though, like you're saying, your instinct is wants to go like, hold on, why don't you put it clearly what I said? After a moment of it, I realized that like that kind of wasn't the point for me in that time. I was like, just let people.
Yeah.
Because I also figured out that if people, a lot of people were going to read it, say something, and go like, this guy's the fucking worst. And it's kind of feels good sometimes to be like, you want to know who a bad guy is? This guy.
Yeah.
And even though you want to be like, hey, I'm not that bad of a guy. If someone wants to just go there, you just kind of have to let it go, and then let the people who were enjoying it or who were investigating it and finding like, oh, it's a little different than it's being presented.
Yeah.
Discover you that way.